Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fireside Adoptees. This is our Adoptee Fire Speaker series, and we're here with Shelley Jean. Let me read you a little bit about Shelley Jean's bio. She's a domestic infant adoptee from the baby scoop era. Shelley grew up in Wisconsin, having been placed in a family with one older biological daughter. During her ongoing efforts to search for and connect with her own biological family, Shelley has encountered multiple challenging obstacles, which she continues to work through. Shelley was a pediatric RN for 20 years and has been a phone triage RN for the past 5. She began studying reiki about 5 years ago while practicing yoga to help relax during her search. Shelley is an active member of the online and in-person adoptee communities and enjoys meeting and supporting other adoptees. Welcome, Shelley.
Thank you.
So glad to have you here.
Glad to
This,
finally be here.
yeah. So I'm really very excited to have this particular interview, just because you've been a source of encouragement and presence in my life for almost 3 years now, so pretty much since I came out of the adoptee fog in July of 2021. So we have a history here of knowing things about each other's stories, about searches, having had a lot of private conversations and just keeping up with each other. So I'm proud to be able to call you a friend and say I've really been looking forward to this interview, and I hope it's an enjoyable experience for you.
Thank you.
Thanks. So let's talk a little bit about your life as an adoptee. Finding out you were an adopted person. When when were you adopted? Into what state? When was Wisconsin here? But what do you know about the circumstances of being adopted?
I was born in December 1970 in southeastern Wisconsin, Milwaukee. I was adopted out February of 1971. At the time, I didn't know what the reason was for the timing of, being in foster care. I did find out I was in foster care. I don't know much about that. I was adopted into a loving middle class family. They had one other daughter who was 7 years older than me. She's their biological daughter. They struggled with fertility issues and were able to have her, and then still struggled and decided to adopt. So that's really all I knew about my circumstances growing up.
So would you say that life growing up, knowing something about being an adoptee, that you were thinking about your circumstances at that point, or were you just going out about your life as a regular kid and not really thinking too much about being an adopted person?
I can say I was very much in the fog, if you want to use that term. I always knew I was adopted from as early as I can remember. I don't think I always understood what that really meant. As I got older, I understood more. I think I recall my first memories of it thinking somebody else brought me home from the hospital. I remember asking my mom, so someone else brought me home from the hospital to your house? And they said yes. So I lived a pretty typical childhood. I can't honestly say I thought much about it. I think a lot of the things were very subconscious for me. I mean, I had a happy, great life, but looking back, there were a lot of struggles and challenges due to being adopted. There were struggles with, being very clingy to my mother, attachment issues with people, so many things I can look back now that I understand and say, yes, this is why it was that way. But it was the 1970s. You didn't get therapy in the 1970s unless things were really dire. I do believe my parents knew a lot of this, and just they were told to just treat things normal, treat her like she's your birth child, whatever it was, they were told, and they followed that. I think they did everything to the best of how they were told and taught in that era of how to treat an adopted child. They followed the rule book on that perfectly. So if somebody asked me about it, I was really open to talk about it. I was happy about it, proud. Adoption is great. I tell all the things that you're supposed to say. And I really, at the time, I think I believed that because I didn't know any better. And I didn't think much else about it, really.
That sounds almost exactly like my experience. I'm glad you brought up the attachment there. We don't normally talk about it as much, and it's a really good conversation. I tend to talk about whether I was reactive in certain ways, but there are attachment issues involved there. So it's really important you were able to identify at a later stage here that there was something going on there that made you a certain way in relationship to your adopted mother, that as you described it as clingy. Yeah, there's an anxious attachment maybe for some of us, or or different ways. I know that some of the language around attachment has been not so supportive of people who are in states that, by states I don't mean geographic states, but emotional states that other people might describe as there's an issue or a problem with the child. And really it's about so many things, about the relinquishment piece, for example, and we wouldn't have had any way to know that when we were really young. So that clearly became the case for me as well. So did you have any friends who were adoptees growing up, or know any other people who were
Uh,
adopted?
Actually, yes. I feel like I always had one adoptee in my life. In elementary school, I had a friend that we had very similar lives and she was adopted. So it was the same thing. We were both really proud of it. It came up occasionally, but we didn't really think about it too much. And then in high school, I had a male friend who was an adoptee, and he wasn't adopted into as good of a home. So he had a lot more struggles that I noted. But at the time, too, I don't know that I thought that was why. It was just like, oh, he's just the home he was adopted into isn't as good as mine. So he has struggles due to that. My college roommate, one of my best friends in college, was adopted. Same thing. She was adopted into a good home. We both knew we were adopted, but we never really talked about it. So I've always had somebody in my life. And now looking back, it's so interesting me to realize I had all these people and we never talked about it. It's like, oh, we're adopted. Cool. What's your story? And that was the end of it, when there's so much we could have been connecting on.
Again, very, very similar to what happened with me. I remember being aware of other adopted children in my elementary school when I was younger. In high school is when I really connected with one young man in particular who became one of my best friends. And he was adopted. His sister was adopted. And I remember thinking that he had some struggles with anger. I didn't have any idea why that would be at the time, but I think probably if I had been aware of some of the things that might have gone into his own circumstances, or just the fact of being given up at birth, then I probably would have been much more aware of what impact this can have on people. So I certainly relate to that. It's really interesting that you had people nearby, and I relate to that too. And yet the conversations didn't happen. I lived next to somebody for 14 years in Massachusetts who was an adoptee. No conversation about it. So yeah, but at some point you started to talk about it more. What do you think led to finally discussing more about what it was like for you to be an adoptee?
Well, I can say since I went on my search, I've been in contact with all three of those people through social media, and two out of the three have searched, due to me searching. So that was kind of cool. The other one just not interested at that point in time, but I feel like I was integral in that, which was kind of neat to be a part of their searches. I can tell you something I thought about while you were talking when I was very small. My mom's family's from England. She came here from London, met my dad in the military. So before I was two, my parents or my mom and my sister took me to London for 2 weeks to meet all my mom's family. They thought that was a great thing to do. I came back and I wouldn't go near or look at or talk or anything to my dad for almost 2 weeks, my adoptive father. He didn't go with us. And just that amount of time at that, that's a really tender age to be moved around again. And I know they didn't realize what they were doing, but I think that was really harmful to do. And my dad had family in Arizona, same thing. We all went together, but all these things I think just built on my insecurity or just, worried about my permanence of where I was.
Yeah, it could be perceived by you at such a young age as another instability. Maybe you really didn't understand the first one, right? Because it's a pre-verbal thing that had happened to you. And then something else comes along, and it's destabilizing, I think, for somebody who's very young, especially an adoptee who's already encountered the most significant form of being separated like that. So I can see why that would lead to that feeling for you, and the challenges of reconnecting again to your father at that point. You talked a little bit about the fog, and that's a big concept for me. And I know it's not universal for everybody, but it's certainly widespread. I like to say that a lot of adoptees, particularly adoptees around our age, baby scoop era adoptees, we talk about the fog a lot, and being in it and feeling like it's a safe space of unknowing, I guess, in a way. And then suddenly or maybe for me it was sudden. It's not for everybody, but by degrees, people come out of the fog and go, "Wow, this is what's really happened to me." Did you have any particular events or sequence of events that might have happened in your life that led you to be on the other side of being in the fog?
My adoptive mother passed away when I was about 40 years old. She had been sick for a while. During that time, I recall thinking about my birth family a little bit. I think it was more medical things I was concerned about. I have two sons. I thought to myself, well, I'm not getting any younger. I'm living in like ignorance is bliss. I have no health issues because, all the health issues I know about with my adoptive family aren't mine. So it's easy to live that way. So I started thinking, I probably should know, or my son should know. And I was 40 then. So I'd think about it and then forget about it. You're busy raising your kids. So I think about it, forget about it. And it probably took me until I was 47 till I really said to myself, you know what? I'm a nurse. I should do something. So I talked to my husband about it, and he's like, yeah, like, what's the big deal? What could go wrong? We'll find them. If they're not good, we'll just, not connect. So that was, I think I was 47. So all year I procrastinated. I looked up everything online to search your records in the state of Wisconsin. You had to fill out papers and write checks, do all this stuff. So I think I did do that for a few years. I just look it up occasionally, randomly, and go, oh, that sounds like a lot of work. And I'd forget about it again. So finally, when I was 47, I told my husband, I need to do this. I'm going to do it January 1st of next year. So that would have been January 1st of 2019. I ordered a DNA kit. I requested all the paperwork. And I remember New Year's Day of that year, I, literally spit in my tube, filled everything out, and got it all ready to go for the next day. So that was my beginning of the next steps. Little did I know what, I'd be getting into. And honestly, at that point, I don't know if I really was concerned about like meeting my birth parents or anything like that. I think I was nervous. I was really worried. My thought was if they gave me up, there's something wrong with them. I think I was really worried that they would be bad people or there'd be something really wrong with them that would, I was scared. So I just put in you had to write a little note of why you were searching. I think it was very kind and respectful. I wrote all the things you were told that you should write to your birth mother, but it was really focused on medical information. Thank you for giving me life, that kind of thing. I'd like some medical information. And at the time, that's all I thought I wanted. I realized how, I guess, ignorant to the whole situation I was. I don't know. It's very interesting to me now to try to process how my thoughts have changed.
I think it's interesting how you mentioned the respectfulness of the way you addressed them in the letter or addressed wanting to meet them in the letter. I feel like I approached something similarly, meaning the way there was this level of deference. I was definitely interested in connecting, and I probably didn't think at all about the medical piece, and I still need to think more about that. One of the things you said in another interview, and it made me laugh a little bit, was you said, I didn't have any medical issues because I didn't know my history. And I know why you said it, but it's kind of humorous in a way, but it's also, it dawned on you that I really don't know this. There are other people that will be impacted by me not knowing this. So it's important to finally take that step and do this. And you said it opened up a whole different world for you. Maybe it's the case, and I won't speak for you, that you thought, okay, like your husband said, what's the worst that's going to happen? But what did actually happen? I know this is a big conversation, but it didn't go, I think, as well as, or the direction that maybe you would have expected, even just looking for medical information.
It's a lot, so I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. So I sent all the paperwork into the state. I get the phone call from them saying, we've got your records. I'm going to be your social worker, etc. So that was sometime in January. Then I remember on February 13th, I got the call from her saying, she left a voicemail, I found your birth mother. She's still alive. If you can call me back. And the interesting thing about that day is because that's the day of my relinquishment. So I don't know if she knew she was doing that, but she literally contacted my birth mother on the day that my birth mother relinquished me 49 years earlier, 48 years earlier. So I thought that was interesting. She called me, she explained how the process worked and said she talked to my birth mother and she was, of course, really shocked. Like, why now after all these years? Is she okay? Then she said, I need to talk to my husband. Like, this is just really shocking, of course. And then she shared a bunch of unidentifying information she could share over the phone with me. She's like, I can send you all that, but let's wait and see what happens. And she explained how we just take it slow, we don't pressure, etc. So I'm like, okay, here we go. Then I had also done my DNA, so I was waiting on those results. So exactly probably a week later, Saturday night, late at night, get my DNA results. They pop up. A lot of interesting things. Again, I didn't have any clue what I was doing, but I did find two distant cousins that lived really near me. We had mutual Facebook friends. Come to find, one of them was a nurse at a place that I had worked. So I used the mutual friend to connect us, and they were just amazing ladies. I'm so happy to have them in my life. And then I didn't know what to do next, so I got in some Facebook groups. I wasn't really a part of a lot of groups at the time. Found a search angel. She got onto everything as like, we can figure this out. I have enough info. It'll take me probably a couple of days, but we could probably nail this down. So then her advisement to me was to download my DNA to some other sites for free. She's like, we usually don't find anything, but let's do it if you want to. So I did that. And about 3 days later, I got woken up to my phone at like 5 o'clock in the morning, look at my heritage, and I matched with my birth mother and birth father. So I was shocked. I didn't even know if I understood. So I messaged her and she's like, yep, that's your birth mother and birth father. So she started researching them right away and was able to find out that they were together. She's like, I'm not sure if they're married. Your mom uses her maiden name, no other children, but she was able to find out a bunch of stuff about them real quickly. It was very interesting. The jobs they were doing, that they wrote a book about cross-country skiing a few decades ago. There was just a lot of interesting things. So it was exciting. And she's like, they're looking for you. They both did their DNA. Who does that? And they had done it. It was just about exactly a year before I did mine. So back when I was thinking about it and procrastinating, they did theirs. So I was like, they're looking for me. So I sent them each a message on there individually, just a very, again, polite, generic message, not knowing if they would get it. Who knows? And then so then I decided I was just going to wait and be patient. I did let the state know that I had got that information. And now looking back, I wish I wouldn't have shared as much with them, because I feel like they clammed up a lot once they knew I knew more. It's like once they knew that I knew probably more than they did, it just didn't feel as supportive, unfortunately. So if I could do that over, I just wouldn't have said anything. So in the meantime, I'm like, you know what? I've got time. Let's just wait. I did a bunch of research to find out more about them. They were very professional people. So there was a lot of interesting things out there, especially about my dad. And so I just waited and searched, and I was able to connect with some other relatives or find other people through some really serendipitous situations. I found my first cousin. She was divorced from my best friend from college's friend she grew up with brother. There's just all these crazy things, but it helped me connect with people, because I could have these people connect with them and just say, she's not crazy. Don't worry, this is real. So it was really interesting from that standpoint. So I was able to connect with my first cousin a few weeks later on my dad's side, and we just had some messages back and forth. This was a lot for her. I think, of course, they wonder if, this is real. Are you legitimate? Super kind lady. But she's like, I need to talk to my sister and my dad and just process through this. And her mother, my dad's sister, had passed away, so she couldn't talk to her. So again, just being patient, I was able to find my parents' phone number, and we did call it just to see, is it their number? And my dad's on the voicemail and he says my mom's name. So we're like, yeah, this is them. And of course, I found out how young they were. So I'm like, I have time. I'm just going to take it slow. They need to process this. They're together. This is a lot. I don't know. I didn't know what to think about my history. So it was a few weeks later, I was trying to find a cousin on my mom's side. So I grabbed another search angel. It was during my lunch hour at work, and said, hey, can you help me connect with this other cousin? So she started doing some research for me and asked if I know who my birth parents were. And I told her I'd already found all that, but I said, sure, you can look more. Who knows? It's always cool to find more info. So she came back shortly and said, did you know your birth father passed away? And I was like, no, you must have the wrong person. It's a common name. And she's like, no, he passed away on Monday, and this was Thursday. So she pulled up this very basic obituary. So I found out my birth father had died in his sleep of a heart attack a couple nights before. Here's me thinking, they're 69 years old. I have all this time. I'm going to take this slow. And sitting on it and waiting on it, I lost the chance with him that he passed away tragically. So that was, if I could do it over, I certainly would have just, when I called that time, picked up the phone and tried to reach him. But, so I don't advise anyone to wait, though I thought I was doing the right thing when I did wait.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that outcome. And I know that, we hear of situations like that. There's like this much time that people really have and unfortunately we believe we have more. So that must have been really, I don't know how devastating that must be, or just to know that that chance was gone. And then did your thoughts immediately turn to what could be there with my connection with my birth mother then? Is that what happened?
Yes, of course, again, the state, I was talking to them back and forth, the social worker, and I did let her know. Oh, I know, she called me back again and said, I tried calling your mom again. I actually reached her and she said she was sobbing and crying and said there was a death in the family and didn't say much more and couldn't talk. So I shared it with her. I know it was my dad that passed away, her husband. So I'm sharing all these things with this person, and she probably doesn't even know a lot of these details. And again, she wasn't very helpful with it. And I just told her, please just let it go, let it be for now. Don't make any more outreaches. She's obviously really struggling. She has no other kids. So I just told her to let it go. And up to this point, my birth mother has not been willing to have any contact. At that time, obviously, they didn't ask her for contact. Over the couple years, I have had them outreach again, and she's just, there's times they couldn't even get her to stop crying when she talked. It was hard to even talk with her. And she just basically would tell them, I just need to figure myself out. She was a mess. Luckily, I've contacted a lot of birth family on my dad's side, a few people on her side, and my dad's family's been warm and welcoming and wonderful. They're like, if he were here, this would be so different. He was looking for you. He was a very outgoing man. He was a college professor and traveled all over. They're like, they're like, there's no way this would be happening. And they've all welcomed me with open arms, which has been amazing. And several of them have tried to make their own attempts at contact. Since my dad died, it was really easy for them to send letters and cards and really try with her. Some of them have gotten a little bit of contact, others not much at all. She's just struggling huge. From what I've learned, she had a very good job until she retired. I think they retired a year before he died. So the timing was really unfortunate. They didn't get to do those things together, retired. And he was her world. She had her job and him is what it sounded like. I've talked to a lot of people who everyone says the same thing. It's the same story. She was very sweet and kind when we met her. She hardly ever came to visit unless she had to. She always had an excuse not to come home and visit. My dad would come all the time and visit everybody, and she always had some excuse why she couldn't. So everyone always wondered, and they even said they would kind of jokingly place bets on if she would come to this, like weddings, funerals. And now they were all just like, wow, like this all makes sense. I was born in 1970. My dad finished college here in Milwaukee right away on time. It took my mom another, that was 70. It took her until 78 to get her degree. And right after she got her bachelor degree, they moved to the mountains of New Mexico. And she ended up working in a lab there. I won't give too much information, but there's a movie about the lab that she worked at. So about the history of, the creating of that town and the lab she worked at. So that was basically, from what I'm told, her life. My cousins that remember her from before they moved, all the stories were, she was super sweet. She'd sit and play like Barbies with us or dolls when the other family was doing adult things, talking. She was very loving and kind and quiet. Nobody has anything bad to say about her, but they're like, there's just something that, some pieces didn't connect. And in connecting with all this family, nobody knew. I have an aunt on my mom's side that said she found out many decades later that my grandmother, eventually my mom told my grandma in the 90s, and then my grandmother told her, but nobody else knew. So this was deep, dark secret. I think she's still living guilt and shame, unfortunately. I hope at some point she'll, I send occasional cards, letters, things like that. I just do little things that aren't pushy, but just to let her know that I'm still here. It's very hard for me because we look like identical. Even the social workers, like, you sound identical. All the pictures I have, thankfully, family has given me a lot of pictures. It's just so hard because I look so much like her. Like, how do you not see this person that is an image of you? When my husband and son first saw the pictures, they were just floored when they saw it. My son was hiking up in some mountains, and he's like, I almost just fell off a cliff looking at these pictures, Mom. So
Yeah.
it's been a challenge. I'm hopeful, but there's a part of me that also says, do I sit and be patient and then have the same thing happen that happened to my dad? Do I kick myself? And I can't force a relationship on her, but I feel like I just want to see her once, or see her in person once, just for my own, just what I need.
Yeah. And you look a lot like her. Um, there's people in our community that really strongly resemble their parents, and you're one of those people. And you know, I wonder how you keep your mind from always thinking. First of all, it must be a shock to find out they were together still. I don't know how many people find that out. Then to hear that there weren't any other children, but it must have for you this creation of scenarios in your mind constantly, maybe like trying to figure things out and then go, I can't know these things. How do I calm my mind down? What can I piece together from other family members? It must feel really restless to try to figure out the degree to which you're able to.
Yes, it is very hard. Thankfully, therapy, EMDR, those type of things have helped me deal with the parts of this that I can't control. Obviously, just trying to keep yourself busy on other life things. It was hard. The past 5 years have been hard. I think there's times it's been hard on my kids and my husband, for them just to try to process what's going on, because you don't know clearly by what my husband said what you're getting into when you get into it. And he didn't think this was going to bother me. I didn't think it was going to bother me either. But now I do have so many things I process. What if, what was this, what happened? And I learn a lot from everybody. And a lot of the family also tries to piece together, hey, let's try to think back to 1970 and, piece parts together. But I find the more things I find out, the more questions. It just brings up more questions. I've got all of my non-identifying information. There's a lot there, but of course, there's things crossed out. Most of it I've figured out, but it still just keeps bringing more questions. The more answers you find, I think the more questions you have. I'm hopeful at some point to be able to sit down with her. Like I said, relatives have tried to do what they can to help. Not sure if it was helpful or not, but everyone with good heart has tried to help me and welcome me in as much as they can with the situation. It's frustrating for me because I feel like I was just so close. Like, they did their DNA a year before, and that's when I was thinking about doing mine. Why didn't I do it? When I look at my DNA account, my dad's last time he logged on to my heritage was the day I spit in my tube, January 1st. I mean, just there's so many, serendipitous things, strange things that have happened, that it's really frustrating, but you just have to find a place, I guess, of peace to say, this is how it is. And for some reason, maybe this is what was meant to be. I did help another older gentleman in my family figure out who his birth father was, and found out from him my birth father was trying to help him the year before I did my DNA. And he said my birth father was trying to help, and there were too many siblings that it could have been. So my dad just couldn't do it. He didn't have the help he needed. So they gave up. But literally, my dad was trying to help somebody find their birth father. If I would have done my DNA at that time, I would have crashed right into all of them, and I think this would be a different story. I'm guessing it would still be very hard for my mom, but I think she needed him to do this. If they did their DNA, there was a reason for this. She was a microbiologist. She knew what she was doing. I know the social workers had said, well, maybe she just didn't understand what it meant if you did your DNA. I'm like, no, she was a very educated person in a lab. She knew what she was doing, whether it's what she really wanted or not. I don't know. Maybe my dad wanted it more than her. I don't know, but I do think she maybe needed his support, because it sounds like she really needed his support for everything. So I feel sad. I feel like she's out in New Mexico, sad and lonely, and life isn't the best for her. And I wish she knew it could be positive with my family, that we'd be a good addition, but I just can't force that. Yeah, so I do have people that talk to her very occasionally. She's really hard for everyone to reach. So it's unfortunate, but maybe at some point she'll get there.
Yeah, it must be. We talk sometimes about, on the outside looking in, and you can't see directly in, but people you're in touch with can see in and have seen in, and you must feel like you're just so close, but nobody can quite get in there for you. Or the people that can't, like you said, nobody can force a connection or a relationship. And that, I can't imagine how discouraging that could possibly feel, but I know it's probably giving you energy in different ways, like participation in the community, like you said, helping somebody else find family, doing sleuthing on your own. You're pretty capable sleuth. I happen to know that. You know how to look for things. You have resources, which is really cool. And you also have a spirit of, I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm just going to keep going. What else can I do? Or there's a drive in you, right? That just keeps pushing forward through a lot of this. And that that can be inspirational, but I'm sure you would rather. I'm glad it's inspirational for someone. I wish, though, I could just find what I need myself and not just be good for other people. Right.
Yeah, there's days it can be hard. You see other people connect, and it's,
Yeah.
it's very disheartening. I try to always be supportive and happy for everyone else. I've taken a lot of joy in the people I've helped connect. So I try to keep doing that despite the days where it's down for me. But dark humor helps a lot. We have a lot of dark humor and jokes about the situation with my mom. That's kind of how we relate to it. There's a lot of, funny things. We just found out there's an Airbnb rental like 3 doors down from her place. We're like, maybe that's an option. So, yeah,
Totally.
we just, there's times I have to put it down and put it away. But I do find every once in a while I just get these feelings like something's unsettling in me. And every time that happens, I feel like I find some new, whether it's a new connection or new information. It's not as often as it was obviously 5 years ago in the process, but I still I still have things I'm doing, and there's so much I can do with family trees, and there's a lot of work for me to be done and complete that I haven't done. So I certainly can be busy and just, finishing raising my kids and job and everything else in life. So definitely busy. But I did go to a family funeral this past Friday, and that was very validating. My dad's side of the family. I mean, I met some new people that I hadn't gotten a chance to meet yet that want to get together now. I've had some really kind words said to me that were just really meaningful. Somebody hugged me after the service and said, "You know what? I just said a prayer for how lucky we are that you found us." I mean, things like that. I was, you're trying not to cry during a funeral. That was very special. And people there were like, "Well, you know more of the people here than we do." That was kind of funny because a lot of them are distant relatives. They don't know each other, but I know all the connections. I was able to have those cousins that I met, the first ones I found via DNA. They're like third cousins, ones from me, very distant. But I told them about the passing, and they came down to the funeral. They had met the man that passed away once because of me. We all got together, so I thought that was really nice. They came down and showed support to the family. So and people were hugging me there saying it's because of you that, like, we're all a family, but you don't always know your distant family, that because of you we all know each other. And there were some elder family members that I brought to the funeral and helped them, and one of them has visual issues, and my cousin has spina bifida, so it's sometimes hard for her to get around, so I helped them at the funeral. And it just means a lot to me to connect with all these people, and just all the new people I met. The granddaughter of the man who passed away just hugged me, and she's just was the warmest person. She lives in Atlanta, and said, "You do not know how much joy you've brought in my grandfather and my mother with finding you." So those things make those things make it worthwhile. It really does. These people, I needed to find them. I found out a lot of health information, which has been very good. Not as much as, there's still more I'd like to know, and hopefully I'll find out. But the fact that my father died in his sleep at 69 of a heart attack was huge information. And also found out that his father, my grandfather, died at 54 on the golf course, same situation. So those are really important details. And my dad also had two sisters. One sister died of a cardiac event at like 72, and the other one died at 74 of lung cancer due to smoking, and they died 9 days apart, which is another very strange situation. So all these things are good things to know. It's unfortunate though, all those aunts who my cousins say would have been so helpful to me aren't here. They all just are so frustrated because they're like, our moms would give you so much information. You know, they just are so sad they're gone. That again, I was just a little too late in the process. And they all said our moms, there's no way they would have known. They couldn't have kept a secret. So even though maybe while they were kids, the secret would have been kept, they all said, you know, by the time we were adults, they would have told us. So I really do think this was a very deep secret that really nobody knew.
It's coming up here. Hear me still? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, sometimes, unfortunately, that's the technical thing. One thing that I've found encouraging when, because again, we know each other well. We talk about this stuff a lot. And I've had a really wonderful access to a lot of things that you've shared. And I've always been encouraged by the number of cousin connections you've had and how good they are. I don't have any cousin connections. I have these very lukewarm sibling connections, and I'm not saying that, you should be glad you have this as perfect. I know it can be very, I'm sure, disappointing not to have any siblings, but I've always enjoyed the fact that you seem to have really strong connections with cousins, and I'm really glad that can contribute so much to your life for that.
Yes, I'm blessed to have all of them. Some are first cousins, second cousins. I mean, I connect with all of them that are willing to connect with me. And that's been really great. I mean, it's very special. And that's what I have. So that's what I have to do. My aunts on my dad's side are all gone, so I don't have that. And their husbands are gone. Everybody's, that next generation is not there for me. So I try to connect with all my cousins, and they are great. It does make me really sad there weren't any siblings. And I know that doesn't always go as well as you hope for. I'd love to find one. I mean, I guess I never lose hope 100%. My dad was a drummer in a band when my mom met him, so maybe there's still somebody out there that I haven't found yet. So I keep the faith, but chances are I don't have any full siblings. So, but you never know when you least expect it, something else could happen. So I'm hopeful, but if it's cousins that I have, I'm really glad that I have them and that they are willing to connect with me. And the majority of them have been really great about it once they, felt comfortable that this wasn't some kind of scam. And the hard part is I had started my search in January, but a lot of them I didn't find until finding my dad's obituary in April. So it looks like, oh, who's this person coming in when somebody dies that has people have admitted to me that looks like a scam, or is there something financial, when really I can show them, hey, I started this months before. I can show people my DNA results that was several months in for me, but they don't know that. They just know that by the messages people put on his obituary, I was able to find people. So just through the, detective process.
Yeah, that's unfortunate timing. Of course, they wouldn't be able to dispute the visual similarities with your biological mother. That would be, I think, unanswerable to them to see that. But yeah, it's sad that so many people have suspicions about us. I think we were after these incredible, like, oh, we have the wealthiest people or something that we're going, and we know that's not ever what it's about for us. It's about something very human. We want to know, am I going to be healthy? Am I have anything to worry about for my children? Do I have a right to connect with people that are related to me? I'd like to be able to do that if I can. So instead, it's like, what are you after here? What are your intentions? I was asked a couple things like that, and then it's on us to overcome that and not act indignant, because if we act too indignant, then you think, oh, then I don't have a chance for the connection either. But I do feel indignant because other people aren't being asked things that were asked. So one thing I've really appreciated about you over the past few years is your boldness in telling your story has been increasing just a little at a time, up and up and up and up. And we had Amy Lynn, we had Shelley Shelley Jean and Amy Lynn. And then we had Don't Tell Anybody He's the Same Person. And then I Am the Same Person. And then I'm not sure I'm ready to tell my story yet. And then the story's out there. It's coming out in different places, but that's encouraging too. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what it feels like to get more courageous about being out there with your story.
Yes, I have my adopted name is Shelley Jean, so I always had that Facebook account. And then eventually, when I did, I was able to find out my birth name by kind of writing a lot of letters to the judge in my county where I was adopted, asking for my birth certificate, proving to them that I already knew everything, and I don't have a complete birth certificate how I want it, but I'm still continuing to send more letters and kind of fight back and forth with them. But I was able to get my birth name from it. So that's huge. So when that happened, I decided to open another Facebook so I could be more open about what was going on. It's hard with people in your life that aren't a part of this community. So I needed a safe space. Now I'm at the point where I am planning to get everybody from my adoptee page over to my regular page, and it's been 5 years. I'm ready to be completely open about it. And some of that was respect for my adoptive father. My adoptive parents were really open, find your family if you want, we'll help you. But he has had several strokes since this all happened, and sometimes his understanding of what's going on is difficult. Like when he was young and healthy, if I would have brought it up, he would have been like, hey, what's going on, are you going to find them? But now I would bring something up and he would just go back to these past stories. Like, well, I remember back when you were young, you would just say, if they came to the door, you would say, thank you for giving me life, but I don't want anything else, and he'll repeat this over and over. So I'm like, okay, this is maybe he's not in a place to talk about this, so it was very hard. And I had tried one time to talk to my adoptive sister. I said something and she made a comment that wasn't good. And I'm like, okay, you're not a safe space either. In the meantime, and over the past few years, she and I finally have had an open talk about it. She was extremely supportive. A lot of tears were shed. She lost her husband to cancer, to liver cancer, so she has her own struggle. So sometimes I think she wasn't in a place to help me. She's too in her own world. But very recently we had a talk and I just told her some stuff. And I think she was shocked because she first said, well, I'll help you find whatever you want. And I just kind of chuckled like, you're 5 years too late. So I just gradually started sharing what I felt comfortable sharing. And she was very emotional. She's like, I'm sobbing right now, crying that, she won't connect with you yet, but and I sent her a picture and she was just shocked, obviously, at the resemblance. And she's just like, I'm really glad that you're getting this. And I hope that she'll connect with you. And like I said, I had boundaries of what I was okay to share of the story, but she was in a place to really be there for me, which I really needed from her, even though I know she's got her own things. So that was really good. And then when that happened, I'm like, you know what? I'm ready to be out there. If people aren't okay with it, that's a them problem, not a me problem at this point. So I always try to respect people involved in my story's privacy. I don't want to be putting all the names out there. I have to respect my mom's privacy. I know, look at how she struggles. The last thing I want to do is cause her more pain. But I also told myself that I have a right to know who I am. I have a right to all my relatives, whether she likes it or not. So I have gradually done that despite what she might think about it. She doesn't have a lot of family on her side, but I have been in contact with, her siblings and those things. Cause over time I'm like, I can't wait so long. And that's, I just can't. So I try to respect her privacy as much as possible while balancing what I think I deserve as an adopted person in finding my story and my roots. So it's been a up and down challenges. But I think I'm in a pretty good place right now with everybody. And, we just keep hoping that things might change.
I hope so too for you. Always wishing that that will be something that works out for you to be able to make that all important connection. And so you've been in the community a long time now, and I think you're somebody recognized in a lot of groups in a lot of places, online, and then you're also in-person groups. But how has the connection with the adoptee community been for you? What do you enjoy about it?
I think it's been obviously life changing. I can't even remember exactly when or how I first got into the community. It's weird. I couldn't even tell you what was the first thing, but I know I had already been doing my search. I know a lot of people are in the community and then say I haven't searched yet. So if I could do it over again, I think I would have wanted to be in it first to hear what happened with more people, because maybe I would have proceeded a little differently had I known. So that part I might change, but of course there's ups and downs in the community like any other community full of people with a lot of trauma. We see the goods and the bads, but I know there's a lot more good and healing if we find the right spaces. I co-facilitate an Adoptees Connect group in Milwaukee area, and I just adore it. We have 60 members. A lot of them don't come to meetings because they don't live nearby, but we've got a great group. I just love it every month. It's very diverse, and that's amazing. I've met so many people, so that's a really good thing. Recently, I have become a moderator for Fireside. I'm going to start doing some of the chat groups too. So I'm excited to get more involved in the community. I'm really excited about that. I did go to the conference in Denver this spring, and that was amazing to see all these people in person that I've been talking to for 5 years. That was very cool. And I am going to go to the Cub conference at the end of September. That's for Concerned United Birth Parents. I know there's birth mothers, adoptees, the whole constellation goes to that. And it's in Kansas City, coincidentally, and my son just graduated from college and moved to Kansas City. So it's kind of a perfect mix. So I do love the community and just continue to want to find ways to help others and just meet more people.
Yeah, that's great. I also have enjoyed a growing experience of the community in the same way. And I haven't been in it as long as you have, but I feel like some of these experiences are very similar, again, and very relatable. And we're very close in age. We had our parents were the same way, it sounds like. Don't talk to them about it. Don't make them feel any differently about it. Yeah, that has a lot of disadvantages, doesn't it? It certainly it wasn't I think what so many of us, and there were millions of us in the baby scoop era. That's not what we needed. So no wonder we all this suddenly came out. I've been appreciative of the community, of your presence in it, the way you've always been a really reliable and encouraging person in my life, and I know in the lives of a lot of people here. So I want to thank you for finally we got this together and a chance to talk to you and bring your story a little more widely. And it's out there in other places too, and that's exciting. I hope you'll continue to just keep putting it out there. And as it grows, and it changes, it can change. You might read something tonight and go on an interview tomorrow and go, this is now expanded this way or something. There's a very dynamic, but really appreciate your time, Shelley, and your openness, and very much value you as a friend. And I think a lot of people can say that. And then we saw people in the chat saying, wouldn't miss this. Really, really excited to have you here. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years I've been trying to work on this, but
yeah,
you came around. I appreciate that.
I've watched the Taylor Swift Eras tour on TV with my kids, and at the beginning of the tour, you hear her in the distance saying it's been a long time coming before it starts. I'm like, oh, I need a sound clip for this interview. It just made me think about it.
I knew I'd wear you down. Thank you. Yeah, and for everybody, thanks for coming out to support Shelley, to hear her story. And we look forward to bringing you other adoptee experience and stories and more content through Fireside Adoptees and our YouTube channel. And we look forward to seeing you again. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.